Welcome back to RGR Football. This is going to be a fun one because Matt and I get to dream a little bit. And this is Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. How are you, Matt?
I am doing pretty well, Ryan. Hope you're doing as well as you can out there in the snow.
Yeah, like the rosiness has left my cheeks. I think I'm okay, but, feet and feet of the white fluff is challenging sometimes. But, folks, I hope you're not challenged. Make sure you like, subscribe, do the whole 9 yards because Matt is going to tell you some things that I think is flying under the radar. You'll hear some of this on Locked On Chiefs as well. But Matt, like Patrick Mahomes, all of a sudden the concept, the landscape of what the Chiefs cap is going to be, particularly with his contract, has really changed in the last few days, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. I mean, with the conversion of that roster bonus into a signing bonus, it obviously has dramatically changed what the Chiefs can do this year cap wise, and that was part of the plan all along. I mean, this Brett Veach has been going into this knowing exactly what he had available to him and what he needed to do, and they've had a plan for it. So none of this is necessarily a surprise at One Arrowhead Drive. It's kind of coming out in drips and drabs to the rest of us. And hey, there'll be a few more things that happen before the beginning of the new league year and probably a few things after the beginning of the new league year. Things will always be in flux. So, hey, there's a long way to go before we get to the beginning of the season and you field your 53.
And that's what's really interesting about it is with the automatic nature of it, this seems like something that we'll see again, but this year's what's concerning, right? To have that hit and have that convert so that there is just about 13 million at the of cap space now. We're on the positive side all of a sudden, right?
Yeah, and remember, I mean, you've got other contracts that you can do the same thing with. I mean, you could do the same thing with Frank Clark if you want to. There's a few other deals as well. I mean, potentially, yeah, Travis Kelce's ripe for that. Tyreek Hill, I mean, we don't really know specifically if Hill's contract has a conversion, measure to it, or you actually have to get in and touch that contract to renegotiate it. But their potential is there to do that. And then there's extensions as well. And, the Tyrann Mathieu extension is the biggest one hanging out there. The key is that, with a conversion from Mahomes, you don't have to get Tyrann Mathieu done. That's not now has to get done for a cap purpose. Mm-hmm. Chiefs want to get that done because they want to keep Tyrann Mathieu around for a while, but it's not a sword hanging over their head that they have to give to get that done to free up cap space. Now they can take their time. And remember last year with the extensions with Mahomes, Kelce, and Jones, those all happened later in the offseason.
Yeah, that's the interesting part for me too, is like 13's nice to have. You need about 6 or 7 for your draft class. So it's still not a ton of room for them to try to do anything freakish in free agency. We'll get to that in a minute. But the interesting thing for me is that I do think it is going to get done. For you, do you expect it to be forethought in that there could be a void year in a Tyrann Mathieu extension as well?
It could be. I mean, there's a lot of things that they could do. I mean, and with Mathieu, they've got some options. I mean, this is clearly a key piece that they want to keep beyond just, 21 and 22. I mean, I think they would like to be able to get a longer term deal done. We'll see what the structure of it looks like, because honestly, I mean, the Chiefs with all of their, big free agent deals over the last few seasons, they've done them all a little bit differently and taken different approaches. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that they do, structure the Mathieu deal. I do feel pretty comfortable and confident that will get done. And honestly, I think it's going to get done sooner than later. I mean, I don't think this is going to be a July type of proposition. I mean, I think it's much closer than that. Tyrann Mathieu certainly seems like he wants to stay in Kansas City. And if that's the case, I mean, I think they'll be able to get it done. How it's structured, though, I mean, I think it's still up in the air, but it'll be interesting to see how they do it. But I do expect, obviously, when you look at Matthew's cap number, it's a big one. That's going to come down considerably. That should free up another at least $10 million in cap space for them.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you don't technically have to sign the draft class till June. So you want them into a mini camp. So that gives you some space or some time there to play with. For me, like in terms of trying to get as much bang for the buck as you can, I know they said they want to be active in both the draft and free agency. But does a lack of a Frank Clark extension or restructure in this case, does that tell us something about how they feel about his performance?
I don't think so, not yet. I
Okay.
mean, the concern clearly with, restructuring Frank Clark's contract, which they've done a couple of times already, is that you're just adding more and more to that dead cap space. And, if you wanted to get out from the Frank Clark contract, the last thing you want to do is restructure it again. And yeah, you know what? I mean, do you want to make the argument that Frank Clark has underperformed that contract to this point? Yeah, I mean, I think you can convincingly make that case. There'll be others who say, will say no, but I mean, I think you could convincingly make that case. But yeah, like I said, I mean, if you see the potential where you want to try and get out from Frank Clark early, you wanted to make him a tradable asset, you can't that neither of those options is on the table for right now because of the dead cap space that he's carrying. And the question is, do you want to add more to that?
That's my thought as well. So like I don't expect anything to happen with Franks myself, just to leave that flexibility if you do decide that it just isn't living up to the contract here. But that brings me to, I think one thing that will help him with his performance is not just playing with Chris Jones, but having a bookend on the other side of the line. And there's some that feel that the best bet is to go after a pass rusher in free agency rather than wait for the draft. Do you buy into that particular philosophy?
Potentially. I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios that are out there as far as where the Chiefs are going to go and what's kind of going through the head of Brett Veach. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that they could go. It seems like the two most compelling needs that, for this team to put some money in at some point is either at left tackle or for another edge rusher who can pair up with Frank Clark and take some of the pressure off. Remember, because I think you can make the case that clearly, when Frank Clark was healthy and had a reliable, rusher on the other side, the only time that's really happened was really the second half of 19. Mm-hmm. And Frank Clark was exceptional in that period of time. So if you get Frank Clark healthy and you get him, a partner on the other side that's consistent, can add some consistent rush, then I mean, I think you're getting a different player. So now the question is, do you get that in free agency? Can you get it in the draft? Free agency is interesting because I think that there's going to be some bargains to be had out there. I mean, there's a lot of edge rushers that are out there, and the Chiefs have done a reasonable job of that. I mean, look what they did with landing Emmanuel Ogbah. Mm-hmm. And I thought Taco Carlton looked really good until the injury. He could still be part of the picture. I mean, that's a guy that you could keep and come back and probably, once again, a pretty affordable rate. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious because I do think that there's some names out there, that they could be interested in that aren't that, it's not like they're going to be able to go out and spend $18 million on a companion edge rusher. But is there somebody in that, 8 to 10 space that maybe you can even get in, with some salary cap tricks, a little bit lower hit, knowing that the cap's going to go up a lot next year? Yeah, I mean, I think that's a possibility. I don't think you can do that with both tackle and edge rusher. But, if you're the Chiefs and maybe you feel like you can get a left tackle solution in the draft, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that they could go.
I feel exactly the same way, and I'm glad you said it that way because 8 to 10, I think, is kind of the sweet spot, whether it is the pass rusher or the tackle situation. So let's flip over to that because a couple of high-priced commodities out there that are going to be available only by trade. I don't particularly feel like the Chiefs should be a player in that space, given the picks that they'd have to give up. Do you?
Yeah, I think that would be tough. I mean, and the reason why I think you might be on to something with going to edge rusher is just because the edge rusher market is a lot deeper and a little bit more affordable. The left tackle market, I mean, let's be realistic. The Chiefs aren't going to be a free agent player for a Trent Williams. I mean, I don't see how that would ever happen. I'm not going to say it's 100% no because there's a lot of things you can do. And
it is Brett Veach. What are you going to do?
And Brett Veach has done some things. But then again, guy's 33, so I'd have, some concerns there too. Mm-hmm. But that's part of it. I mean, you look at the left tackle market, there's not a lot of names. They're pretty expensive. Trade could be a way. But once again, left tackles and trade, if you want one, you're going to have to pay for it. And that if you move a commodity there, you're going to probably be moving a first round pick. You're going to have to give up a lot of choices to get that done. And, especially since the Chiefs have a later first round pick. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just kind of adds to the inventory you'd have to move. I see getting a deal done pretty difficult as it is.
I do as well, and I know that there's Brown out there that folks are going to clamor for. You know, because he's still on the rookie contract, maybe that 1 year could buy you that time. But again, you're going to have to give up not just the first round pick, but I think significantly more. That comes down to the question of, do you take the commodity? Do you give up the first round pick because this tackle has reps in the league that you know he can perform at least at a satisfactory level? I don't know that he's ever going to be all pro. I think that's a gamble. But there is always a question mark of taking, you know, a left tackle in the draft with that same pick. Do you find that one is more, more likely to pan out long term than the other?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I mean, especially if you look at this year's draft class, I mean, the perception around the league is that, you know, the depth at tackle is really good. And maybe it's a lot deeper position than edge rusher for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, and if you're Brett Veach and your staff, and if you've identified that, hey, maybe there's 4 or 5 guys that are potential starting left tackles who could do it in year one, because that's a position where it's possible to do that. I mean, there are guys who can come in and play immediately at that spot and be effective, not necessarily Pro Bowlers or anything, but
right.
they can give you solid play. So, you know, if you're the Chiefs and you feel like, hey, you know what, certainly not in a position to be able to go up and maybe get one of the 2 best tackles in this draft, but hey, is a guy that the Chiefs love available, maybe in the teens that they could move up to? That's a more realistic deal getting done than I think making a trade for, you know, Brown or anybody else that might be available. It's going to probably a little bit cheaper to make that move. It's a guy that you have under control, you know, and that's, you know, left tackles typically don't bust. I mean, even if you draft a left tackle in the first round, typically, even if they don't, you know, fulfill that, you know, dream of being a left tackle, sometimes they can at least be productive right tackles. I mean, they're going to be productive players. They don't just bust on you completely. Edge is, you know, obviously a little bit more shifty in that spot. So I could certainly see it being a scenario that if the Chiefs see that there's a tackle that they like and are willing to move up to get them, you make a plan for that. You get the edge rusher that you want or that you can afford, plug it in there. You address offensive line through the draft, and maybe you add depth through free agency. But like I said, there's a lot of different scenarios, but I can see that being a scenario that is in play.
I like the way that you put that, because I think that is the formula, especially when there's now a rumor of them bringing back Mike Remmers on a cheap contract. I'm all for that, despite what happened in the Super Bowl. And I will say this, though. I think he's no longer, in my mind, a swing tackle. He's a backup right tackle and guard. I think they have to have a more dedicated resource to be the backup left tackle, in my opinion. Do you think that I'm out there?
No, I don't think you're out there. And, you know, and I think that, hey, they're hoping that maybe Martinez Rankin can be that kind of guy. I think there's a lot of questions, obviously, you know, whether Rankin can be a starting left tackle. And I'd have some concerns about that if that was your guy. But that's somebody that they feel like that could do it. Yeah, and maybe Niang is going to be there one day. But, you know, I think that's a really big leap to expect from Niang to be able to be, you know, pushing for that starting spot on the left side. I mean, the right side would be a lot more likely. And you know what? I mean, honestly, I mean, my expectation right now is that I'd say the odds-on favorite to be your starter at right tackle might very well be Mike Remmers at this point. And maybe Niang gets one of the guard spots. You know, I think there's enough fluidity there right now that, you know, and the Chiefs are preparing for a lot of different possibilities, but I think both those options are on the table.
Well, I think they still do what they do, and that they want versatile linemen so they can fill in where they are. I think the best case scenario should be Niang at right tackle with Remmers as the backup and LDT back in that slot. We'll see if that actually happens. But for me, and I just want to get this on the record for everybody now, same thing with Cam Irving. Martinez Rankin is a guard. He's not a tackle. He will not survive out there at left. Left in particular, he will not survive at. But that said,
need to get you and Brett Veach in a room and hammer that out.
Yeah, and I'll take the beating. I don't care. I'm just saying this is my opinion, and I was right last time, Brett. So anyway, the last thing that we got to clear up, though, is one thing that I don't think free agency is really much of an option for, and that is a starting level interior offensive lineman. I think they have to look at the draft for that.
Yeah, I think so, and you know, and you're not necessarily completely, you know, past bringing back some of the guys that they had. I mean, obviously Brett Veach talked about Andrew Wiley. He's a exclusive rights free agent, or restricted free agent, so you can keep him relatively cheap and under control. With the discussion that Austin Ryder's probably not coming back, I would expect Nick Allegretti is, at least first in line, especially since he's the one guy under contract. But, hey, they brought in Kilgore for a reason. There's possibility he could stick around. And if that's the case, then, yeah, you got some guys, all there to play that center position. You're bringing back LDT. So I don't, and you add Niang to the mix, I don't think that the Chiefs completely feel like that they're in bad shape on the interior. I think they like some depth. So I think they're certainly going to be looking at some, free agents that they're probably in the kind of Mike Rimmer's range. Maybe it's some guys who underperform their, rookie deals, or guys who are on their second or third contracts that can be had for cheap. I don't think they're going to spend a lot of money on the interior. It's not usually been Brett Veach's style. But I do expect they'll bring in some competition there for sure.
I think it's more likely, and you tell me if I'm wrong, do you think that there's enough momentum for Allegretti to move to center, or do you think it's more likely that they draft a center and let him stay at left guard?
It's curious because, I think that, they've always kind of thought that Allegretti's best position might be center. And he's certainly, a smart guy. I feel like he could handle that spot and is a known quantity. It's interesting because it would actually be a little bit out of character for the Chiefs, and especially Brett Veach, to go out and get a center specifically, because normally what they like to do is they like to draft guys who've been left tackles in college and then plug them in where they want them. And, and they've done that in a lot of different cases. Now Allegretti had, some experience on the outside. That was a big factor in his draft, but they always felt like he was a guy that could start at center and be that guy. So I think it's more likely, I think, for Allegretti to take that spot, because I think if they draft someone, like I said, I think it's going to be a tackle. And if that's somebody that they move inside, move him to guard, but I don't know if there'll be a center solution immediately.
Gotcha. Okay. So this week, as we get ready to head into the free agent week, we'll start to hear rumblings, I'm sure, in the next 48 hours or so. But do you think that before we talk again next weekend for next Sunday night, do you think that they actually sign anybody, or is this still the quiet period and they'll hit the second wave?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they make some signings. Specifically with their own guys. The cap issues are kind of, I think keeping everything a little bit on the low flame as far as even bringing back their own free agents. We'll see. A guy like Dan Sorensen, I think, is interesting. That's a guy that I wouldn't blame him for, seeing what kind of interest is out there, how much money might be out there, but I know that Dan Sorensen wants to stay in KC and they want to keep him. So, it's not going to be on the same kind of deal that he was before, but, that's a kind of deal that I could see getting done depending on what kind of interest is out there. You're right. With a lot of KC's free agents, especially guys that already have a ring, I can see them, hey, they're going to look for money. They're going to see what they can get. And if they can't get that, they always know they can come back to KC and there's a spot for them. So wouldn't be surprised. But I think that the Chiefs will be a small player. Like I said, I'd be really surprised if they go out and spend some big money immediately. But if there's some guys that they can, snag at a good price, I think they'll do it.
I certainly think so as well. It's going to be interesting to see just how much momentum they get, or if we hear any of these moves before now and then. But thanks for filling us in where we are now.
Absolutely, Ryan.
Folks, ChiefsDigest.com. Go check it all out. If you're not subbed here, click the like, the sub, and the bell notification. We will have more for you tomorrow. I'll do the Q&A thing and try to answer as many questions now that Matt's, enlightened me. So you all have a good one. You too, Matt. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.